Today was the day when the drip, drip, drip of the Diddy trial evidence became all-out waterboarding. And wouldn't you know it, it came from a celebrity stylist who sashayed his way up onto the witness stand. Deontay Nash had the kind of joie de vivre and sass that literally had that courtroom hooked from the moment he showed up. Apart from being right out of central casting, Nash hammered nails into Diddy's coffin today, one after the other, by testifying about things that line up squarely with racketeering. If you think the trial so far has been all about domestic abuse and not about the charges that Diddy's actually facing, like sex trafficking and racketeering, this stylist, Deontay Nash, his tour on the witness stand might just change your mind. Look, it is no secret that Diddy was violent, abhorrent, disgusting. We all saw what he did to Cassie on video. He admitted to it himself, but he's not charged with assault. And Deontay Nash testified about things that went way beyond violence and went straight to the heart of the prosecution's case: force, fraud, coercion. He told the jury that he actually witnessed Sean Combs regularly beating and threatening his...
This testimony reveals a disturbing pattern of abuse, highlighting how powerful figures can manipulate and intimidate those around them. The stylist's account underscores systemic issues within celebrity culture, where violence often goes unchecked and victims feel powerless to speak out.
His girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, and that he would threaten to release the sex tapes of her. That he would use those sex tapes to get her parents fired from their jobs. And that he, Diddy, as head of Bad Boy Records, would refuse to release her music if Cassie didn't do as he said all the time. If you're keeping score, that kind of behavior from a guy at the head of an enterprise could easily be seen as the jury as extortion, coercion, forced labor, all the elements, the racketeering charges that Diddy's fighting. The stylist also testified that on Cassie's 29th birthday, she confided in this stylist that she did not want to participate in Diddy's planned freak-off. After all, it was her birthday, not his. Maybe there were some freak-offs that she enjoyed, and maybe there were some that she did not, but felt she had no choice. For the record, forcing your employee, using your enterprise and your power at the top to have illegal sex with prostitutes that have crossed state lines, that's called sex trafficking, friends. It's called forced labor. And that is what Diddy is charged with in this trial. But this trial has so many people asking the question, what exactly is RICO? Well, technically, RICO stands for Racketeer Influenced Corrupt Organization. And back in the 70s, the feds created it as a means to bring down the mob, like an umbrella charge that bunched all together a whole bunch of different crimes. And that is the same federal law that Diddy's facing now. My next two guests know this law maybe better than anyone and know how hard it is to beat a federal RICO case because they're both former mobsters jailed by the feds for RICO. Michael Francese was a captain in New York's Colombo crime family. He served 8 years for racketeering and extortion. And Anthony Ruggiano Jr. is the son of a Gambino crime captain who was locked up 4 different times for robbery, gambling, and, yes, RICO. Michael and Anthony, welcome to both of you. And Michael, I said Francese, and I think it's Francis, so I will correct myself before we even get started. Thank you both so much for being here. I have so many questions for you. Let me start with this, and I'm going to open it up to the both of you, but Michael, I'm going to get you to start. For a lot of people, RICO is all about the mob. It's all about what you see on The Sopranos. It's those kinds of crimes. It's not the stuff that they see on tape where Diddy's beating his girlfriend up. But I know that you guys have had a chance to kind of look into this case. You've heard what I just said in the opening of this case. So do you think that this is RICO, or are you scratching your heads?
Well, you know, first of all, you can say my name either way, Francis or Francese, so you're correct. But I will say, the RICO statute was definitely created, I think back in 1970, a fellow by the name of DeBakey created it specifically to go after the mob. No question about that. It's certainly evolved over the years because the government obviously can use a law in any way they see fit. They've gone after Wall Street people with it and a lot of other people. So they'll use it outside of the mob. What's a little bit confusing here is normally there is a criminal enterprise that's involved, a group of people. I had 3 racketeering indictments, 2 federal and 1 state. And in each case, it was the Franzese family, the Franzese group as part of an enterprise. And I had a lot of co-defendants. I didn't hear the government's opening statement on this to see how they tied this into a racketeering statute, because as far as I know, it's only Diddy on trial, and he's on trial alone. So are they claiming that he is a one-man enterprise? That's what's kind of confusing to me, because the charges against him can certainly stand alone. I don't think they need to be part of a racketeering indictment, but again, I'd have to know what the opening statement was and how they put that theory together that this could be under the RICO statute.
So you know what? I'll throw this in here, and Anthony, you can jump in. From the way I see things, what the prosecutors have tried to determine was that here's Diddy at the top of Bad Boy Records and the enterprise that he's created, the big businesses that he's created. He's got employees that he's paying as security. He's got employees like Cassie, who is supposed to be releasing music. He's got employees like assistants who he tells, you go and set up the free coughs and you go and get my drugs. And, you grab Cassie and bring her to this vacant building and threaten her with a lie detector test. So I think what they're trying to say is that he used his business and he used his corporate card from Bad Boy Enterprises and he used cash from the business plus assistants and employees to carry out a lot of the crimes that they're alleging one after the other, with these witnesses. So if I lay it out that way, Anthony, what do you think? Do you think this lines up with the RICO that you know?
I feel a lot like Michael. I'm struggling with it too because my RICOs also, there was co-defendants. I read his indictment. I started reading his indictment today. And his business is the enterprise, and the people that worked for him were part of the conspiracy. So maybe they're unindicted co-conspirators, and they got immunity because, like Michael said, on my indictment, it said the United States of America versus, and then there was 8 names. And we all conspired to commit crimes. Diddy's alone. Who did he conspire with? Did he conspire by himself? Did he extort people? Yes, he did. Did he kidnap people? He held them against his will? Yes, he did. He brought people across state lines, which is a federal offense. But to be a RICO just on him, it's hard for me to understand how that happens.
Yeah, and I do think that, listen, we got weeks and weeks left of just the prosecutor's case, but already we've seen one of the assistants who said he got immunity. And my feeling is that his second in command, Christina Coram, either she's going to plead the fifth or she's going to have been offered immunity or use immunity for her testimony. I do think you're right. It's kind of confusing without the conspirators, but my feeling is that right now, to get the testimony against the guy at the top, they may be offering them immunity. But like I said, we still have to find that out. I got this question for you, Michael. I opened the show by saying that I felt sad by sitting through a lot of today's testimony because this stylist, he just went over instance after instance of just vicious, vicious beating and control that Diddy had allegedly over Cassie, things he saw firsthand. Things that he even tried to step in and stop by jumping on Diddy's back. Blood coming down Cassie's face during one of the beatings that Diddy allegedly turns around and says, look what you all made me do. And I wondered about a guy like that. Now that this is all coming out in the public, if Diddy's convicted, this is not the kind of behavior that I used to hear about with the mob. They beat up and killed guys, but they didn't beat up and kill girls all the time. Do you see a big difference here with the kind of behavior Diddy's accused of doing compared to the behavior of mobsters?
Oh, absolutely. Let me say this. I always take the position, someone's innocent until proven guilty. That's just my position all the time. However, we have seen certain things. I think everybody has seen the hotel video where he was obviously beating her up, and the testimony has been absolutely despicable. And nobody in my former life would ever approve of something like that. And I think Anthony will vouch for that. We didn't beat up women. We didn't do things like that. We were taught to respect women in a big way, especially our families. So, in our life, if you violated another made man's wife, daughter, sister, mother, you're in a lot of trouble. So we didn't stand for that in any way, shape, or form. And like I said, the acts that are being described here are disgusting, despicable.
Here, we see a stark contrast between the expected conduct of high-profile individuals and the horrific allegations against Diddy. This moment heightens the tension as it forces the audience to confront the unsettling reality of celebrity privilege and accountability, or the lack thereof.
If somebody like that was in our former life, he wouldn't last, quite honestly. And again, I would love to hear, I believe that the defense is going to attack the RICO statute here. You said, possibly there are witnesses that have been given immunity. Not possibly, 100%. I mean, that's how government builds cases. They go after people, they get them to cooperate, and they give them immunity. So like Anthony said, there's probably several unindicted co-conspirators here that all decided, hey, we're not going to take the fall. We're going to cooperate. We're going to testify, and that's why they weren't indicted. So I would believe what Anthony said, that, they're going to use the theory that you said, that the whole, Bad Boy Records was a criminal enterprise. He was at the top of it. He used these other people to implement his criminal schemes, and that's how they charged him with RICO. But these acts are just, the real question is, how did this go on for 20 years?
This poignant question encapsulates the broader societal failure that allows such behavior to persist. It challenges viewers to consider the complicity of bystanders in the media, prompting a critical examination of how fame can shield abusers from justice.
20 years this was going on. A guy as high profile as that, and I've said this before, and nobody gets charged for it. It's allowed to continue for 20 years. There's no question that people knew that this was going on. There were high profile people involved. How does something like this go on for 20 years? Anthony, in our former life, this wouldn't last a year. People would be down in.
Definitely.
Yeah, you know what, Anthony, I'm gonna get you to dovetail on that because I want to know if Diddy's convicted and he ends up spending the rest of his life in a federal prison, given what we know now, the filth of his behavior, the absolute filth of his behavior when it came to how he treats women. One woman, absolutely. The others, so far, it's just an accusation. How will he fare behind bars?
Well, I have two scenarios. If the BOP buries him in like a Marion or...
As we reflect on the revelations from the trial, the testimony of the stylist paints a chilling picture of abuse and manipulation at the hands of a celebrity. It raises critical questions about accountability in the entertainment industry and how systemic issues allow such behavior to persist unchecked. We must demand justice and change for those who suffer in silence.